you're going to help me probably a lot. And I was sitting next to Chris Girardi at a chair thing, and I'm like, you know what you need to do a breakout on? This thing I've been trying, I call Headed Off at the Pass, which is getting some of the issues that I've struggled with in the classroom kind of out in front of the class, and us all dealing with it together. And he's like, sure, I'll put that down. Can you give me a write-up? And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll be there. So these things that we're dealing with, and it's all different for everyone, have been in existence forever. They were in existence before COVID. They seem to be exacerbated a little by COVID. And I was wondering if you could tell me what you're struggling with, what you see when you look out there. Okay, so at the top of your handout, this one, I have a few that I myself am seeing, and we're going to then segue into what are some ways we can deal with it. So, any of these? Anybody want to chime in?
Yeah. So last semester was the worst attendance I've ever seen. Even the first 1 or 2 semesters back from the pandemic, it was better. Last semester was just really, really bad attendance.
Okay, and please, I should pass around or have a sign-in sheet if you want me to send you the research. Should we do that? Because epic absenteeism. Epic. Okay? What are some of the reasons? A lot of experts have agreed that we sent the message that you can do this another way during COVID. You can do it another way. Prior to assessing whether it really worked. Then it's also connected to another word on here, anxiety. That's a lot of it too. So all of that is connected, but these empty classrooms, and also no urgency or concern on the part of the student about being absent is something else I've heard. Like no real, yeah. Oh, do I?
You do. Oh.
Sweet. Never in my life.
Sorry, ADA rules.
Thank you. Can you make sure I do it right?
You were going to be the next over, now you got it.
Oh God, I feel so important.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Wait, did you start broadcasting?
I did.
There you go.
But I had big fat microphones because I'm really old. Okay?
No,
And nothing was wireless.
And now you get it.
Oh, now I'm broadcasting.
Your own TV show.
Okay. Oh, I feel really weird. Okay. I hope it doesn't fall off. Okay. What else? Absenteeism.
Lack of momentum. Like it takes more than just the first 2 classes to get the class going. I'm finding that usually the first class they're all like deer in headlights, but now by the 3rd and 4th class it's like, okay, anybody have a pulse? Like,
Right. Very low participation, almost no participation. That's being written about. Even with the more outgoing student in the class, but a real hesitancy to participate, and that sluggish feeling continuing, and the comfort level not hitting at the same point. Some will say it never hit, which is, then you're like, oh, where's the coffee? I gotta go to my 12:30, What else?
Like a lack of resilience. As soon as things get hard, they check out. They don't know how to fight through it and keep working.
We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to tell a story, and maybe it'll make people mad, but it's kind of how I started talking to my students about the anxiety and the giving up. And it doesn't start with back in my day. Actually, it does, which is not really a great opening for anything you tell a young person. Back in my day, I saw over here, and then I'll come to you.
In agreement with all the things that are at the top of the page here, but also cultural silos where it's hard to have a reference point that all the students, they know of this piece of music or they know of this movie, and not being able to have those kinds of reference points.
This goes so far back in terms of cultural literacy, and the books that were written. When I first started here in 1991, I talked about Jimmy Stewart, and nobody knew like who I was talking about. And that was in 91, and now it's increasingly harder to find that example that's gonna hit it, and that's why there's Instagram Reels, which I'm trying, I don't know how to yet show them. Yes.
So as the mental health counselor on campus, I have to be honest and say that my body cringed when you said they are not resilient, because I see resiliency in them all the time, and I feel like what I want to share with you is that our students, like I often say to people, if they had one thing that they were dealing with in their life, that would be enough. But they've got this, and this.
Be overwhelmed.
And they're in school. And I'm like, wow, that you are even here, right? So just keep in mind that if they're not coming to class, it's probably because now that's the sixth thing that they're dealing with. And it's not because they don't want to be there. It's just they've got all this other stuff that they're trying to be resilient about.
And more so in terms of, you know, again, I started in 91, so my classes were primarily older people, older than 18. A lot of things have shifted. I had a lot more non-traditional students, and they worked at night, and now we've got that whole thing going on. Also, we have this multitasking culture, and COVID reinforced this idea that you can be in your Zoom class with your camera off, and watch a baseball game, and maybe do reviews on Amazon to make money. You know, so all of that. Any, Don, you had a hand? Did I miss anything?
Limited participation can be traced to a lack of preparation. Students don't want to appear foolishly unprepared in class.
And we're going to talk about a workaround. I want to get to as many of the solutions as possible, because I don't know about you, but I have PDD resentment. If I don't get something that I can take back to my classroom and immediately use, I'm like, yeah, got it, okay. Give me something. Give me an activity. Give me something.
Well, see, I'm seeing the multitasking, even that now they're in the classroom, they have the laptops up and cell phones, and sometimes I think, I don't know if it's because I'm going over the online program or if they're doing something else or
We're going to talk
something for
about
another
that.
class.
Tons of
or the
research on
lab
that.
hours.
So hit me up for the links. I've got the links, and they're not overwhelming because our attention spans are shorter now too. So even if it's a higher ed article, they get to the points really quickly. Okay, I'd like to move on. Anything else you're seeing?
I just want to say
Teach?
one other thing, and that's about absenteeism. Just because students aren't in class doesn't mean they don't care. I can't tell you the number of students who are struggling with mental health, and they come in and talk about being absent from class and how embarrassing it is to reach out to their professor to talk about it because they're ashamed about it.
Well, let me, I didn't practice this properly. This is not about bashing students, okay?
Oh, no, I don't think you
And
are.
everything I'm trying to do, but they need to feel free to say what they're
Oh,
seeing.
yeah, absolutely. I'm just
Everything
trying to
we're gonna
focus
talk
aside.
about, yeah, no, and I'm gonna get to it, because it's in there. I think we all deeply understand what our students' lives are like, and if we didn't, we certainly learn more and more and more. And that piece that you're talking about, the outreach, very low among community college students, even before COVID, not advocating for themselves. This overwhelming sense, I don't even belong here. I don't even know why I'm here, let alone stomp over to the office hours and say, hey, let's sit down and chat about the lesson today. No! Okay, so yes, they do feel bad. So, what do we do? Okay, the first thing we do, and I think the point, what is your name?
Maggie.
And I think the point Maggie made is we gotta come at this with empathy, right? We've got to try to feel what they're feeling. Very hard when, how many of you would say you were a nerd and you really liked school? I was like, I love school. So I'm 26 years old, I started teaching here, and I'm like, don't you love school? I had no knowledge or of my students and what their lives were like. And I expected them to be just as excited as I was, you know? And they have so much else going on, like you said, Maggie. So that is all true. So if we can just preface everything with this idea, now I gotta figure out how to do glasses and headset, that we want to have them. Now, research is shifting in the sense that that unspoken or sometimes spoken message of accommodate, help them, let things go, that they're seeing a little bit more of a surge towards, you know, keep your expectations there, be flexible, but, you know, don't inflate your grades. Don't give them a false story of what life is going to be like, you know, because you have to keep the standards. So how do you do that when they are struggling so much? So maybe we should run through the struggles that are connected to the resilience, the absenteeism. Okay, so Maggie, you mentioned work. What else are they doing? They don't work 15 hours. Do you ask your students how much they work?
20, 30, 40 hours.
Now I hear 40.
Yeah.
All the time, 40. So there's work, a lot represent their families in life, you know, they are the English speaker for their family. Tons of picking up siblings and getting them on the bus, you know, and all of that. So we know they have a lot going on. How do we help them deal with it? Attention. Can we start with the attention span up at the top? So, because the other things that I mentioned were OpenAI, plagiarism, accidental plagiarism, it's a thing, anxiety, and just that deafening silence in the room when you ask questions, even more so exacerbated by the social anxiety. Okay, so here's my point. What is my point? My point is show, don't tell. My point is when they hired me, they told me in 1991, I had to do a summer class in front of students as my demo. And then I left and they asked the students about me. And they liked me, but I was told I needed to marinate and that I would get the hang of teaching. And I think I've been marinating. I think we gotta all marinate again. I don't think we're ever done marinating because everybody changes and the students change. It's a completely different demographic. Now I have so many special needs students. So things are so different. So we're all just marinating. We're not done. So when it comes to attention span and some of the issues, the other thing I noticed is fierce attendance. They go to every class, hand nothing in. Like right there, participating, no work. I'm like, and sometimes I've looked and been like, I thought they had given me everything because they talk so much. No work. So I decided, headed off at the pass, meaning let me let go of this incredible need I have to cover everything that I said I was going to cover in the lecture that I prepared. Let me take that time in the early part of the semester and face this stuff with them. Let's talk about the elephants in the room, not judge them, but talk about where it comes from and give my perspective on resilience and anxiety and just talk about it as a real thing and what it's all about. We are always telling them. We need to show them. Show, don't tell. Anybody who teaches writing knows that, right? Don't tell me, show me with examples. So, for attention span, I give out the first article in your packet, How to Focus Like It's 1990. So this is where I said I want you to leave with something. I don't have them read the whole article in the first class because it's, you know, kind of long. But I asked them to read the first 2 pages and talk to each other about it a little bit, and then I open it up. Because I'm saying to them, can you relate to this? Do you think this is true? Are you so sick of hearing people tell you to look away from your cell phone? And so we end up, instead of me going through my syllabus, instead of me saying don't be late, we talk about this. We just get it out there, that the odds are so stacked against them in terms of attention. And I admit to my own attention difficulties. Okay, so that's a thing. And if you're having that problem, stop now. Stop, drop, and go with the moment with your teaching, okay? You're better off, so you won't get through every single point that you wanted to get through. But this could be more valuable for the rest of the semester. So if you see it happening, if you see the absenteeism, if you see like that high level of anxiety, stop, let's just talk about it, we have to, okay? I think we're past that phase of saying, well, I do my content. Well, we're teachers. You know, we're not primarily researchers, we're primarily teachers. So I think we have to take the time out, invest the time in getting out in front of some of these things, okay? So the other thing I'll do with them is I will tell them what their attention span comes from. So on this sheet, it's their age. You see that little formula? Age times 2 minus 5 minutes. Okay? So an 18-year-old has got about 31 minutes when they can zoom in. Okay? And obviously some are lower, some are higher. So I think that makes or helps them to feel like this is real. You know, I'm not alone. It's not just me. My peers have 31 minutes. Okay? So what I'm trying to do basically is say to them, not like it's not your fault, but get that whole blaming, and you people today with all your technology have the shortest attention spans of anybody on earth. And then my phone buzzes and I want to go look at it. Right? So that actually is a thing. They feel an instant, like, fight or flight survival, like they gotta check the phone when the notification goes off. So that's another thing you can do. I call it let the notifications roar. So what I did one day, when I kept seeing them sneaking the look and trying, by the way, I observe and I sit in the back of the room. I no longer have my students using laptops. First of all, writing is better for their brains, for taking notes, but I see bathing suit shopping, I see gaming, I see, you know, I wish I could say like, that not always, but it makes it harder, you know. It's like me buying Oreos, I'm making my life harder.
Aren't you concerned with disability issues not allowing laptops?
Oh, well, I don't have a hard and fast policy. Obviously, you take it case by case.
No, but I understand, but there's studies have shown that when you force students to prove accommodations, that students who need the laptop, but maybe can't prove it or do something, then don't have access to it.
Okay,
And
so who knows me?
I do.
Would I ever? No.
No, I struggled with this so much. I'm
I
listening.
wasn't trying to be cute, you said that you don't.
No,
Can I give the advice you gave to me that time?
I just want to not give up. I feel like I got to be very careful now. And I absolutely get what you're saying.
You gave me perfect advice last. Something like this very similar happened. And what Ginny said to me, encourage it. Show what the studies show about being able to write. And you even gave me one of those colored pens with all the different things that students can do. So if we strongly encourage it, it seemed to help a lot.
I will not get through the first class without talking about that issue and to come speak to me, and I won't even say accommodation. Anybody has a form or something they want to tell me, write it on that card, and then stay after class, like absolutely always, okay? But what I am saying is, if they're struggling with attention, the less there is on the desk to distract them, the better, okay? And the kids who have been given tablets are not doing as well as the kids who are still writing and taking notes. in junior high and high school, and my personal passion is writing by hand slows you down enough to think about what you're writing. Whereas you bring the laptop, like I did in graduate school, because I'm like, I don't want to miss a word. And then I'm like a court stenographer, and I got everything, but nothing. I look at it. Who wrote that? So I'm kind of looking for that when I talk about that.
There are the tablets that you can handwrite on. One of my students, I was mesmerized by this
I have
thing.
reluctantly accepted a stylus as serving that purpose, and I think it does.
And then she was able to change colors. I'm not like that up on technology. I thought it was magical. She was able to do with this thing.
Yeah, digital planners can be amazing. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're like drag and drop and everything. But for me, if somebody asks me, should I get a fully digital or should I get a tablet with a stylus, I'm always like, get the stylus, because at least you can like slow down enough that you're doing some sort of semblance of it not being automatic, because we're a swiping culture now, right? Like you're so excited, you're like, I have Brightspace and I can send out an announcement. And then they get it, and then, no they don't, they just swipe it. They just swipe it away. And they take pictures for later, and then later never comes. I take pictures for later, and later never comes. I go through my camera roll, and I'm like, what the? Why do I have this picture of my computer screen? I had no idea what this was. But at the time, I was like, look at me. I'm gonna remember everything. No.
I just think your points are poignant as it depends on how you're using them. Because I'm looking at you now and you're walking around. So as an instructor, it's not just looking out at this group of 28, 30 students. You're moving around and you're seeing this and holding each individual accountable to their attention.
And that's part of the tips. So I gotta stay focused on solutions, not problems, okay? So in terms of attention, I let the notifications roar. I said, turn up your volume. I asked for a volunteer to do tick marks on the board. I kept teaching, and every buzz, they shot a hand up, and we counted. And there were 89 in 20 minutes.
Wow.
So again, showing them, look at what you're up against. I get it. You know, you hear that buzz and you want to go for it. Look at all these buzzes. So it's in your backpack, but it's on silent, but it goes. So that's something you could do as an exercise, just to kind of, every solution in here is about giving them context for why you're saying what you're saying, why you're doing what you're doing. And it's called explicit rather than implicit. But I have to say, it's very different from the way I was taught. It's very different from the way I taught 30 years ago, where the student who entered the college classroom was choosing to be there. And the assumptions we make based on that, such as, you're paying for this. Why wouldn't you care? You don't have to be here. You chose to be here. Why are you sleeping? Well, the degrees aren't really that same matter of choice anymore, you know? Particularly at a community college. Maybe the parents are like, you have to be there, okay? Not only do you have to be there, you have to be in healthcare, okay? So this idea that, can we just look out and it's not about us, oh my God, I don't want to teach 13th grade, none of that, but just like, let go of the reasons we went to college. Because chances are, if you're an instructor, it was very different from the reasons our students go to college. You know? And so they're often here going, not quite sure why I'm here, not quite sure what I want to do, pretty stressed and overwhelmed. So you take all that into account and just try to back off, and I call it empathic rigor. How do we stay rigorous and challenging with that understanding? and the Jedi Institute and all of these things are ways that you can do that. But it's hard. It's hard. But sometimes, you know, if I have an adjunct who's been teaching for 50 years, and I try to say empathic rigor, they're like, what the? You know, they're here. Why are they here if not to learn? Well, they are here to learn, but they're not sure sometimes. Okay, so that's attention. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, the other thing you can tell them, the third fact you can tell them is spare brain time, which is that the average speaker can get about 100 to 150 words per minute out, but your amazing brain can understand 400 to 600 words per minute. They're not there. That's why we go in and we go out. It's because our brain is so amazing. Does that make sense? We're the calm people, because I'm getting blank faces. Somebody else explain it better? I don't know.
I agree.
So in other words, let's say my brain can accept 400 words per minute, but I'm only getting a very fast talking 150. There's 250 words where if I was riveted, like if the tennis ball machine was just bam, 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 I could get it all. But they're not, they're coming like this. And that's why our minds wander. So that's another helpful fact to share with them and say you are battling spare brain time. It's precisely because your brain is so efficient that you can take these little mental vacations and come back and multitask and not miss as much. And they seem to like that. They like that fact. So we talk about it a little bit. And I had a student who came up to me in 2008 and she said, no offense, I knit during class. And I'm like, no offense taken. That's going to be one long scarf. Woo. She was amazing. She never took a note. She got 100 on every test. What was she doing? She was coping with her spare brain time. So doodling, sometimes looking at the phone. Sometimes those behaviors are helping our students focus. So, like the knitting. So that's something else to keep in mind. And I tell them that story as well, and I try not to flip out when somebody's doing something and not hanging on my every word. Okay, low or no participation, high absenteeism. I think we kind of covered that, right? All right, so the low participation, very high fear of being judged. And then throughout the Zoom experience, they didn't have to have their cameras on. You know, like they say, use it or lose it. Wow. So a lot of our students got used to just kind of blank, not interacting, not reacting with facial expressions. Like, I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes I'm having a one-on-one and I'm literally getting nothing, not a smile, just no facial expressions at all. To the point that I've noticed that. And I'm saying, what is, so this incredible flat affect, that's again, exacerbated by COVID. I mean, I don't know anybody who, well, maybe one of you were really confident when you were 18. Not me, you know, but I had to do stuff. I couldn't hide. So I ended up practicing and putting myself out there more. So here's the way I try to talk about that. I try to explain where it comes from and the not having practice. The mean kid experience is definitely worse now than it was when I was a kid. That's real, the bullying, all that stuff. So there's a double layer of self-consciousness, right? So I was self-conscious and I was afraid I was going to be made fun of in my class. Now you can be made fun of all over the internet. So you're not going to be as quick to just shout something out. That's a very highly resilient kid. So, Bridget, right? Resilience, okay. So they were talking about anxiety, so I would have to talk about the anxiety. We're not talking much in here, and I'm sick of the sound of my own voice. Why is it hard for you to participate? How do you feel about raising your hand? And the one who does raise his hand, why is it easy for you? What are you thinking to yourself that leads you to, have that conversation for 15 minutes? With the resilience, I talk about anxiety differently than they view it. And I'm very open about my own struggles with it, which have been significant. But what I say is, when I had it when I was younger, I resented it. I got angry at my anxiety because I knew it was holding me back. And I was so sick of replaying that conversation in my head, or wondering if somebody looked at me funny, or, all of those things. So the difference that I see is kind of not that, and Maggie, maybe you can explain this, not that desire to fight it, more like this is something that I have and I can't triumph over it. Is that a sense that anyone else has gotten?
I like how you said you explain your situations, because I do that in all my classes. Second day, we go back to my roots, and I get where they are. And like you said, when you're so honest with them, they become more honest with you. And I've had many students stay afterwards and talk to me, and they find that they're able to, I guess, join a little better. And after I talk and I tell my story, I always say, is that how you would have thought I grew up? And their mouth, just drops. And I say, well, you can't look at somebody and decide. I said, whether you're looking at them thinking positive or negative, you just can't. So I like how you said, you explained that you had this issue as well, because sometimes looking at us in the front of the room, they don't realize that we've struggled as well, and I think it's great that you share.
I try to, and I saw you, and I tried to, I didn't always. When I was hired here at age 26, I was very reluctant to reveal a whole lot, because I had the classroom management issues, and I don't want them taking advantage of me, and cheating, and I had all that stuff. And then I read this great article about not being the sage on the stage, coming down and being the guide by the side. And then, of course, I matured and I made some people myself. And when you have children, you're like, oh, you get a little tougher. And I realized I have the power. Nobody can take the power away from me. I have the power. I'm the professor. Get over myself. Get over myself. What are you going to say?
No, I
Oh, okay. I saw your hand. So being vulnerable, because I will pull that back, and I will say, well, nobody did X on Brightspace, so I guess what? I'm being too nice or too warm and fuzzy here? Do you want to see icky me? Because I'll get her on out. Again, explicit, identifying all of these things, but trying not to judge them for it. What's my time? I want to make sure. I have literally 5 minutes left. Good golly. Okay. With participation, something else I use, and again, I teach communication, so I'm the luckiest girl in the world, right? Icebreaker cards. I'm having them talk to each other, low stakes, just the two of them. So, about nothing, whatever.
I think we're going 15 minutes later.
Are we?
I believe so. Everything's
Woo-hoo! Okay. Yay! So again, it's so hard for me though, because I'm like, but by the midterm, I have to cover chapters 1 through 5, and hit everything on the study guide, and all the, and it's very hard to let go of my lecture and my plan. Okay? But then that is the good part of technology, is you can just record yourself kind of clarifying something that you need to get to, and put that up on your Brightspace.
I know one of the things you've helped me a lot with in terms of helping students study was when you made midterm review fun with the games.
Okay, yes, and that's on here too.
Yeah, I think, is it the Kahoot one?
Kahoot?
That is great.
Kahoot, my daughter's like, I got the highest score on Kahoot. And I highly recommend it because I am not the techie whiz, but they love it. So my syllabus quiz is a Kahoot that asks them 10 questions on my syllabus. So I don't read it to them, kiss of death, right? I just say, but we will do a Kahoot on this. For those of, again, I will get links. I should get a sign-in sheet. I will get links to Kahoot. Yeah, you did? Honor students.
Give Melissa the star.
Thank you, Melissa. One other thing that I learned early on when I started here was I would watch other people teach, and Celeste Desario, I don't know if you guys know her, but she always sat her students in a circle. She was an English teacher. Shifting up that has helped. If you have desks, you can do that. That makes a really big difference. It says something different to them, the environment, without you saying anything. Okay. When you do ask a question, what is the hardest thing to do? Wait time. The tension builds. I better tell them the answer. Nobody's saying anything. Celeste taught me, have them write their answer down. What?
I just don't know if you're gonna need, is it back there? You're gonna have to do something. You're gonna need that.
If they have it written down in front of them, they're more likely to say it. So if you can give your students time to all write the answer and say, write the answer to this down. And then they can read it off the page. I also hand out little index cards and I collect them. Like, okay, this is the checkpoint for the lecture thus far. We're at 31 minutes. Your brain is about to turn off. What'd you get? What didn't you get? Yes?
Just to play off of that, it's a great idea for students to write down. You also then have an opportunity to walk around, look at their answers, and provide a little support and encouragement to a student and say, hey, when you come back as a group, I would love it if you shared your response with the rest of the class. And that, I could say over 90% success rate with that to get this, maybe a reluctant student or someone new to participate if you give them that little assurance right before.
And it is that guide by the side thing, right? So you're whispering, you get to know them, the reciprocal rule of attention. We want them to pay attention to us. Are we paying attention to them? Are we learning their names? Are we using their names?
Well, I was saying, I updated my Kahoot for the open-ended questions, and I tried to use that with discussion instead of the usual, okay, let's discuss these questions. And it was interesting because they put a lot of thought in 2 minutes. They wrote some interesting things. Then when I went to share, I couldn't get them to speak much. They weren't going to follow up. So it was like a mixed review. I got a lot of good responses. But
did you share them anyway? Like,
I put them on. I had them on the screen,
Yeah,
and
talk
I went
for them
over
a
and
little
said
bit.
something like, "Oh, this is interesting." And I tried to. I didn't really plan it out enough, maybe, but I was like, "Oh, do you agree with this or that or whatever?" And they were just shy about the speaking part. So.
Did anyone? I remember when I got married, the first day. Not of my marriage, the day of the wedding, that thing. What is that thing you do that costs all that money? The wedding. And the photographer. And I was very uncomfortable. Like, oh, there's so much attention, and look through this tree. It just wasn't in my realm of experience, and I felt very self-conscious, but by the end I was. I got used to it, but our students have had a camera on them, this generation, their whole lives. Okay? That's a lot of self-consciousness. And that makes it hard to put ourselves out there for fear of ridicule, or being recorded and put up on some website. But beyond that, one of the things that I find very effective is telling them that everybody's so self-absorbed, they're really only just thinking about themselves, because I think that's pretty true. right? And I'll ask them, I'll say, how many of you would want to make fun of somebody now that you're in college? And they're all like, no. I go, that's gone, right? Thank God. We're away from high school and that kind of feeling. What are you thinking about? Because I teach public speaking and they're terrified. Is anyone thinking about the speaker up in front? No, they're thinking about giving their speech. They're very self-involved, and we all are. So I try to bring that up just kind of as it's not as intense, that attention on you is not as intense as you think, because we're all human beings and we all have stuff going on. Okay, attending but not submitting any work. All I've been able to do with that so far is ask them why, and I haven't gotten a single explanation. I just haven't gotten it.
I had a student like that in college seminar.
And why?
Every attendance, and then when she came to me for advising, she indicated all the personal things going on in her life. She was caring for siblings, the mom was no longer in the home, she was acting more like a mom, she was also working and going to school. So school was obviously important enough for her to go every class,
I can do that.
but it was overwhelming for her to actually get the work done.
Okay. So, yes.
I was just thinking that, I saw something Alyssa had pulled up, you had on the side, something with examples. I think one of the things that holds students back is that you give an assignment that you've given 100 times. It was on a different screen, on your bright space. And,
I'm
you
scared. I don't
understand
know.
it, you know it, and, but the students don't really know what you're talking about. It's the first thing they're ever submitting in college. They don't really think they can be college students to begin with. And I find that if you give an example of what you're looking for, they're more likely to turn it in. And there's two sides to this, and the ones who are constantly asking for rubrics, it's like, then you're not gonna get like the creative answer or whatever, like, I hate to give too many guidelines. But sometimes, at least with some of the initial assignments, if you write it up yourself and try, if it's possible, and give an example. Yeah, you have help with doing journals, including samples. That can help.
Yeah, modeling is huge. My mother was a teacher. She was a trained teacher in East Meadow. Was she your kindergarten teacher? She taught me how to teach because my masters didn't do diddly in terms of giving me teaching experience. So she talked about the importance of modeling, and I was like, but then won't they cheat? She said, no, actually they won't. So in my bright space, I have a lot of assistance. As most of you know, I don't teach with Brightspace, but I think our students have been accessing e-boards since middle school, so it is a great tool for them to access important things, Bridget, maybe even an article about resilience or something, like let's start putting up stuff that actually impacts them that we see. So I have blank outlines of the chapter. I have graded papers up where I analyzed it and said the reason this person got an A, and then I highlight and then I upload it and show them.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, gosh, they love that. They don't feel as scared. I'm moving to in-class writing because of what? ChatGPT. So my first one is everyone has to do it and nobody's gonna be graded. So let's just do it. Let's just try it. I have general college success tools. So I wanted to point out two more things. College Seminar teaches time management, but why don't we all give it a little time? Like, why don't we all kind of explain this? So I do give out a weekly sheet, and if they want copies of it they want 16 pages for the whole semester, I'll do that. Some have their own planners, but then I do take time out now to block out their week and show them that the hour that they have between this and this might be a good time to not go to McDonald's, maybe go to the library and bang out a chapter outline or rough out something. And the idea of chunking your work, breaking it up into pieces, but not just chunk your work, break it up into pieces. I'm like, okay, let me show you what I mean by that. And I'm sure a lot of you do this stuff. And then the other thing, and this is, I feel very strongly about this, and I get pushback. I don't understand, but you'll see in here my course calendar. Okay? I can get off track because I have Brightspace, so I can update it. Or I can scribble on it in front of them and tell them how to change it. Because the pushback I get is, well, sometimes I take longer to do things. These students are not getting week 1, week 2, week 3. You know, this helps them so much. What I'm doing today, what you need to do tonight, and when it's due. Who's old enough to remember the movie The Paper Chase? You don't have to reveal it. That was such a pivotal movie for me in terms of academics about law school. And at the end, that guy, that famous guy, he would go, and for tomorrow, and reel off all these assignments. I did that for probably 6 years before I realized they are not getting that. That is extremely anxiety producing to have me shouting out reminders. And now Brightspace can take care of that for you. So I'm not a big, I like educational technology used in conjunction with face-to-face teaching and to take what's best about this. And you can do that. So the more specific you can be, the better, because guess what? It's not about me. It's never about me. So if I get behind, I'll fix it. I also explain to them that if I drop the ball on Brightspace, I drop the ball. My son is a student here. He is given things at 9 o'clock at night that are due at midnight online. He has emailed people and gotten no responses. 3 weeks they're looking for an assignment in his summer class. 3 weeks, no email back. He failed, shocking. Oh no, the day before the session ended, he got a notice that all these quizzes were up and they could take them all. Okay, so help them. Last thing, AI, and then we'll go over the revamp your class. Thank God our students used it last semester, because the last page in your packet is an actual student who submitted something to Dawn Tracy Hanley. Is she here? No. Okay. That used AI. So in addition to those icebreaker cards, the first day I did the attention span and the icebreaker cards. And then the second class, I handed this out, and I said, you tell me what's wrong. You know, showing them, like, this is what AI looks like. Now, of course, there's this brilliant kid who's like, well, they didn't properly frame the question to get a more detailed response from me. I'm like, don't ask a question you don't know the answer to. Does anybody see? I mean, they didn't have to have earth-shattering responses, but I got responses. What do you think they said? Ooh, wait time. Sorry.
What grade would this have gotten?
This got an F because it was detected as artificial intelligence. I feel my take on cheating, plagiarism, all these things is I do not feel that our students are like, ha, 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 I'm going to cheat. I think they feel very overwhelmed and very desperate, coupled with not being sure why they're here. So it's like, if I got to work 40 hours and I have this due. Like I got 12 papers that started with the same thing about a movie. And this was in 2009. Good Will Hunting. They could write anything they wanted. They all started with Good Will Hunting is an interesting film, blah, 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 blah. And it was, you know, Wikipedia. And it's this like, I don't believe in myself. I didn't do well in high school. I don't know why I'm here. I have to be here. I work 30 hours. I have to write a paper on a movie. Go to. Just go to, I gotta start. Google it. Google it. And then it just, from there, and Christina Savarese right here does amazing writing center workshops. Where's Lizzie? She probably does too. Do we have our Eastern writing? There you go. Okay, because we're trying to explain plagiarism. But let me tell you, in 2009, I was pissed. How dare they? They don't respect me at all. Here I am giving them this cool movie and this incredible assignment. Do they think they can get one over on me? Am I that teacher? I've changed. I've evolved. I've marinated. I try to give them a lot of choice, so I wanted to talk about that briefly. I have 5 journals out of 10 possible journals. They pick any 5. These are going to be the in-class writings now, okay? So, why? Because they're going to have a bad week. They're going to get called into work. They're going to get sick. Their heart's going to get broken. I had one student whose father took away her car every time he was mad at her. Okay? So I say pick any 5. Do the first 5 and then you're like, whew. Or, you know, if you're having a bad week, so can you build in some choices in your actual assignments so not every single thing is a have to, so that they can, and obviously, how many of you like drop the lowest of something? Lowest grade? Because then they can have that 0 in there and it isn't the end of the world. Not a huge fan of extra credit, but I'll do it. Jen Tonso, you get extra credit in her class. One of my bugaboos, they never know my name, and I know their name. And it's December, and they're like, she's like this. Really friendly. What do you do?
Second class, when they first walk in, I give them a little piece of paper. I say, write your name. They all write their name, and they say, okay, 5 points on your first quiz. What's my name? Hold it in the air. I collect them, and then I give them 5 points just for knowing my name.
Right. If you have, like, if you give a quiz and you're very consistent the first 5 minutes of class, but you drop maybe the 2 lowest, that's how you can address lateness. I don't love confrontation, but I will do it. But I don't love it, and I don't love it with my students. So if you can build in ways to not have to confront them about these things, and everybody knows not to do that in front of everybody, right? I'm still scarred from St. John the Baptist, Sister Maureen Peter. The humiliation. Okay, hit refresh, revamp your class. Everything we've talked about is here. If you're wondering how do I take a break and have them walk around, because I feel stupid saying 7th inning stretch, we do. They give us these all the time now, Professional Development Day, and they put up like questions, like 4 questions midway through your lesson, and you could give these to your students and say, okay, write down, and then go over to that board and stick your answer up there. Change up the seating if you can. Walk around yourself. Oh my God, we cannot sit at desks anymore. Sometimes it's exhausting. I feel like I'm banging cymbals. But that's my job. And my job has changed. Okay, what else? Oh, let them fidget, let them doodle. I love exit cards. I give out exit cards in the beginning and I say, before you go, could you just jot down the thing you liked and the thing that maybe is still confusing? And then I get those and I go through them and then I can go back the next class. Do I forget to do this? Yes, it's so frustrating. Oh, didn't do the exit cards because I'm talking too much. But they feel cared about because you've taken the time to circle back to something. It's very funny though, sometimes they're like, you're doing great, good job. I'm like, I'm not looking for an Amazon review, you know? Very, very sweet. I do meditation. How hippy dippy can you be? They love it so much. 5 minutes. It's a YouTube thing. Okay? So I start and I finish with that. More activities that don't stink. And I don't know how you find those, but we should share more of them with each other. You know, don't you love when you see an activity online? You're like, oh, I want to do this activity. And they're like, for the first class, divide your students into groups of 17. Then 2 weeks later, I'm like, no, I need something quick that'll get the point across. Have them create the class rules that you put on your syllabus first day. Do an additional. What do you guys want this class to be? And embedded support, that's the time management, the giving them an outline to help them know how to take notes, anything you can do that is explicit, and no longer assuming that these skills are there. There was a hand, yes. 2 minutes. 2 o'clock. Okay, guess what? I'm done.